Hello all, very good morning. Thanks for joining the session. Let me share my screen. Okay, I believe you are able to see my screen. Let's do a quick recap what we did yesterday. So yesterday we have created the Spring Boot application. Yesterday created Spring Boot application, and we have seen the difference between the traditional web application and Spring Boot application. So these are the differences that we have seen. So what are the differences we have seen? The first thing, what are the differences we have seen? In traditional web application, number one, developer needs to work on configurations of the application and business logic implementation, meaning development. Business logic implementation, meaning development. And what is there we have seen with the traditional application? Second is what? Developer needs to take care of the dependencies and its versions, right? If any dependency is conflicting, if any dependency is otherwise, so there is a chance of, there is a problem of dependency version conflict. There is a problem of dependency version conflict. There is a problem of, there is a chance of having dependency version conflict. So there is a chance of having dependency version conflict. This we will see. We will see in bill of material demo that I will show. And third thing is what else? In order to deploy the traditional application, we need the traditional application. Developers requires the web app. Developers requires the application server. That means requires the external application server like Tomcat. External application server like Tomcat, right? So this is required. So in order to deploy the traditional application, developers requires the external application server like Tomcat. What else? So this is primarily the difference, that the problem we have seen with the traditional web application. So problems with the traditional web application. So these problems with the traditional web application were solved by the Spring Boot, right? So the above mentioned problems were solved by the Spring Boot with the following features. So the above problems were solved in Spring Boot. Otherwise, the above problems will be solved in Spring Boot. The above problems will be solved in Spring Boot with the following features. So what are the following features? What is the above problem? How it will be solved? Let us see. Business logic implementation is not the problem. Developers needs to work on configurations of the application and business logic implementation. Both actually, meaning additionally, in order to have the business logic implementation, additionally, the developer also need to work on the configurations of the application. Otherwise, we can see not and along with the, you can say like this then, along with the business logic implementation. I think this makes sense, right? The developers need to work on configurations of the application along with the business logic implementation, right? Or we can say alongside with the business logic implementation. I think this perfectly makes sense now, isn't it? Meaning business logic, however, the developers need to do, but alongside they also need to work on the configurations. That is little pain point for this. Okay, so now how this problem will be resolved by the Springboard. So Springboard, so this problem resolved by the Springboard with the auto configurations. With the auto configurations in Springboard. With the auto configurations in Springboard, this problem will be solved. Carefully observe. With the auto configurations in Springboard. What is auto configuration in Springboard? Again, we will see. What is auto configuration in Springboard? Again, we will see. But with the auto configurations in Springboard, this problem will be solved. Next, what is auto configuration? We will see. So developer need to work on the dependency management. Yeah. So developers need to take care of the dependencies and its versions. So there is a chance of having dependency version conflict. So this problem will be solved. This problem will be solved in Springboard using the actuators. Sorry, using the starters. Using the starters available. Again, what is starters and all? We will see once the Springboard is started. And third thing, in order to deploy the traditional application, developers requires the separate or external application server like Tomcat. So this problem will be solved in Springboard as Springboard applications are coming up. Springboard applications are coming up with the embedded web servers. Embedded web servers in it, like Tomcat, not fully, only solid container. Not fully, only solid container. So Tomcat and then undertow and Jetty. So these are the embedded web servers that are there in the Springboard. Tomcat, undertow, and Jetty. Okay, so these are the web servers available with the Springboard. So the traditional problem, see, almost all the major problems with the traditional web application implementation is solving now with the Springboard, right? Now, if you can see the features of the Springboard by the above problems, how it is solving. If you can see the Springboard features, right? We have seen the first thing is what? With the help of the auto configuration, we can solve this problem. We said configurations problem, meaning, you know, this as per the yesterday diagram, if you can see the configurations in traditional web application, we need to, meaning developer need to take care, but the configuration in Springboard application is taken care by the Springboard, right? because Spring Boot is following what? Opinionated approach. If we say our opinion, it frames its defaults. For this opinion, we say our opinion, like, we want Spring Web MVC starter. According to this opinion, the Spring Boot configures the applications with the defaults, like dispatcher servlet configuration and annotation configuration .java file, meaning app configuration, and the embedded tomcat, and then the bean validation dependencies. So lots of other jacks and parsers, right? So lots of other configurations were made by default, and then it is giving us the readily available application with the defaults, which can run just without any issues, and the developer can only focus on the business logic, rather also focusing on the configurations. So that's the beauty of the Spring Boot, and thus the Spring Boot is used for the rapid application development. So we have seen Spring Boot is used for the rapid application development. So now, as the configuration is taken care by the Spring Boot, right? So it is one of the feature for us. So we can say auto configuration is one of the feature for us using the Spring Boot. So next what? Next what is the dependency versions are resolving, right? Spring Boot is solving the versions problem, dependencies and its versions. It is taking care about the dependencies and alls. So that means what? Inbuilt starters and defaults. So this is the benefit. And what is third thing actually? In order to run the Spring Boot application, a separate external application server like Tomcat is not required. Spring Boot applications are itself coming up with the inbuilt embedded web servers like Tomcat. So embedded web servers support, right? So this is the three benefits. Of course, other than three, there were other benefits as well. So except this, there were other benefits as well. Series easy dependency management, auto configuration, embedded solid container support, and then the Spring Boot starters, Spring Boot actuators. Yes. So fourth thing is what? Production grade, production ready features with the actuators available in Spring Boot. All right. So auto configuration, inbuilt starters and defaults, and embedded web server support and actuators. So these are the Spring Boot features. Of course, the one more feature is easy dependency management. Easy dependency management using bill of material pattern. So these are the Spring Boot features, right? So we have seen the difference between the traditional web application and then the Spring Boot, and these are the features that we can say, because it is solving the traditional regular application development problem. So that is the reason we can say these are the features as the Spring Boot. So now, what is Spring Boot? Spring Boot is solving these problems. Spring Boot is taking care of the configuration, taking care of the dependencies management, taking care of the application servers. Then what else required for a developer to escape from the configurations, right? All the things which are not required to be bothered about the configuration is taken care by the Spring Boot itself. So developer happily can focus on the only business logic implementations. Okay, so Spring Boot as doing all these things, right? So what is Spring Boot is what we have seen yesterday, but one more time, let us see what is Spring Boot. So Spring Boot is an opinionated. So let me write something like that. Spring Boot is an opinionated approach of developing the enterprise applications. Spring Boot is an opinionated approach of developing enterprise applications with the convention over configuration, C2C, convention over configuration. So Opinionated. Spring Boot is an opinionated view of, we can say, opinionated view of developing the enterprise applications with the convention over configuration approach designed for rapid application development. So designed for the rapid application development. So this, what is this bill of material pattern? I'll explain in a moment of time. Okay, I'll explain this. What is this BOM and all? I'll explain in a moment of time. So what is Spring Boot? Spring Boot is an opinionated view of developing the enterprise applications with the convention over configuration approach and designed for rapid application development. Designed for rapid application development, not designed for, used for, basically we can say used for rapid application development. So this is the definition of Spring Boot. Now obviously we got the some catchy words here. One is opinionated view of developing the applications. Second one is the convention over configuration approach, and third one is the rapid application development. Okay, so about these three words we'll slowly understand, right? About these three words we'll slowly understand what it is and all. So Spring Boot is an opinionated framework with the convention over configuration approach to build the Spring based applications quickly and easily. So this is the definition of the Spring Boot application. The main goal of the Spring Boot is to quickly create Spring based applications without requiring developers to write the same boilerplate configuration again and again. So this is the main motto of the Spring Boot actually. So developers, it just eliminates the developers from writing the boilerplate, meaning the duplicated configuration again and again. But the intention of the Spring Boot is what, to speed up, to improve the productivity of the developer and to speed up the application development by eliminating the configurations problem from the developer. So that is what the Spring Boot definition is. Of course, we understand now opinionated approach, right? Yesterday with one example we have seen what is the opinionated approach. That means what, we were given, we were chosen the Spring MVC starter, then rest of the things will be taken care by the Spring Boot itself. Meaning it forms its opinion according to the option that we have chosen, and according to its opinion, it defaults the application with some inbuilt configurations so that we only can concentrate on the business logic implementation, rather extra configurations that we require to do. So that is the opinionated approach of the Spring Boot framework. Now what we can do, basically, let us see now how many ways we can create this Spring Boot application, and slowly we will understand another word called convention over configuration, C2C. This is also called convention over configuration, C2C. This is also called as convention over coding. Convention over coding. Convention over coding. So again, we will understand this. This is a design paradigm. Design paradigm. So what is this design paradigm? What is this convention over configuration? Again, I'll discuss, but this is the not right time to discuss about this convention over configuration. But as part of the definition, you just can consider Spring Boot is an opinionated view of developing the enterprise applications with the convention over configuration approach, and for the rapid application development, meaning rapidly meaning speed, right? In order to develop the application speed rapidly. So there are few things we need to do: rapidly, and then agility. So rapidly meaning speed, right? Agility meaning lightweight. So these words we'll discuss mostly in our microservices sessions. But at this moment, we can see nowadays companies, in companies, everyone is using what actually the sprint based model, right? Agile methodology. So everyone is using the agile methodology. So as in agile methodology, what will happen? In agile methodology, sprints were there. What is the sprint actually? Duration of time. So duration of time in which the set of requirements, needs to be delivered. So that is the duration of the time. For example, 2 weeks is the duration. In these 2 weeks, we need to deliver the set of requirements called, for example, registration, and then the SMTP settings, and then email templates, design and configuration, and what next? And login, right? And login, and of course login, and then assume OTP implementation or two-factor authentication. Just imagine login and then multi-factor authentication. Just imagine. I'm just writing the requirements: multi-factor authentication, and then the dashboard design. Assume these are the 6 requirements that we need to deliver within the 2 weeks of time. Do you think how much effort that we need to put to deliver these 6 requirements in just 2 weeks of time? 2 weeks of time meaning just only 10 days, 5 days plus 5 days. So within the 10 days, these many requirements that we need to develop. That means what? We need a super fast framework, right, to deliver these 6 requirements. Of course, at least these 3 parts, registration part, at least we can deliver in this sprint, and then we can go for the authentication part at least in the next requirements phase, meaning the sprint to 2. But at least to develop this application, the developer also focus on configurations management. For example, SMTP dependencies management. If the developer is focused on and email templates, design configurations, of course, the dependencies configuration, and then dependencies, and then other configurations. For example, free marker or velocity engine configurations. If the developer is bothering about, then most of the time will be wasted in choosing the dependencies and making the configurations, right? The time is only 2 weeks, but we are spending more time rather than development in the configuration itself only, just to enable the velocity engine or just to enable the free marker engine. Assume if we spend 2 to 3 days of time, that is definitely wastage of the time, right? Developer productivity is not there, correct? So that is the reason with the agile methodology and with the sprint model, the requirements needs to be delivered within the short period of times. So as the requirements need to be delivered within the short period of times, definitely developer requires an accelerator frameworks, right? A developer definitely required an accelerator frameworks, which will accelerate the developer's productivity. Such an accelerator framework is what? Springboard. Sorry. So such an accelerator framework is what actually? Springboard. So using Springboard, so this development, you can say, yes.
Can you please repeat the agile method once? Methodology.
Sorry, agile methodology.
Yeah.
You're asking about, explain about this agile methodology.
Yeah.
Okay. So usually in waterfall model, for example, we have these 10 requirements or 6 requirements we have configured here, right? I mean, we have the 6 requirements here we have taken, right? So these 6 requirements will be implemented in agile methodology in a single shot, meaning the if you can take its SDLC, every model, either it is the agile, either it is the other methodology or model like waterfall. So whatever it is, but the target is what, SDLC, meaning software development lifecycle we need to follow, and then we need to complete the implementation of these requirements. So if you can see the waterfall model, these are all the requirements we can take in waterfall model. All the requirements will be taken in a single shot, meaning all the requirements analysis will be do at a time, and then all the requirements development will be do at a time, all the requirements testing will be do at a time. So this will takes a lot of time, and the customer cannot see the is end product till the completion of all the features implementation. But with the agile methodology, it's not like that. What agile methodology is talking about, divide the huge requirements into the small requirements, small set of groups. Divide the huge requirements into small set of groups, and each group of requirements will be planned for delivering within a short duration of time along with the demos to the customer. That means what? Customer can see his product for every 2 weeks. Customer can suggest the changes. That changes can be incorporated in this agile methodology within the next sprint. But if you can see this waterfall model, new requirements adoption, existing requirements change is difficult to take in this waterfall model. Whereas the new requirements you can easily add, and then the change requirements also we can easily add in this agile methodology. Because an agile methodology, we are not taking all the requirements at a time. We are taking a chunk of requirements or a set of requirements and then implementing it and then showcasing it to the client. The client suggests any changes, we can incorporate them, and then again we can showcase the demo, and then once the client is happy, then we can go to the next sprint, or else in the next sprint we can take it up. Or else in the next sprint we can take it up. That means what? Whatever the changes that we're gonna take, whatever the new additions that we need to add according to the requirement of the client, that we can easily accommodate it in the next sprints. Actually, assume sprint 1 is completed, a client suggested few changes. Those changes we can do in the sprint 1 itself, but few new requirements he was added. For example, SMTP settings we were taken, so email template and design is there, so maybe he also added here. So verification of the email and then mobile number, just he added this new requirement. Yes, this new requirement can be taken up in the next sprint starting. In the next sprint starting we can take it up, and then we can accommodate this new requirement implementation in the next sprint. So in agile methodology, new requirements can be taken up, or new requirements can be adopted at any moment of time, and then change requirements will be addressed, and then the set of requirements that were implemented will be showcased to the client, right? So that the client can see his product for every 2 weeks of time, and then he can suggest the changes, and he can be aligned with his expectations as well. Whatever he is expecting, the output will also be like that. But that is not like that inside the waterfall model. So this is about the agile methodology. And of course, there is a lot in agile methodology. In agile methodology, every day, of course, we are following the sprints, right? So there is a Scrum, actually. There is a Scrum model. There were a lot of other models actually. In agile methodology, there is a Scrum model. So this Scrum model have the Scrum Master. So agile methodology, there is a Scrum model. Scrum model, there is a Scrum Master. So this Scrum Master is responsible. Scrum Master is responsible for conducting the Scrum meetings. Right? Every day we also call them as the stand-up meetings. So every day Scrum Master needs to conduct the stand-up meetings or Scrum meetings to resolve the issues and dependencies. Resolve the issues and dependencies on team. Okay, so to resolve the issues and dependencies on the team, so Scrum Master every day will conduct a small meeting, not more than 30 minutes. Every day he will conduct a Scrum meeting, and then know the issues, know the dependencies, and resolve the issues and resolve the dependencies. So the Scrum Master is responsible for arranging the meetings. Scrum Master can be your lead, your manager, or your team member, whoever it is. Business analyst, whatever it is, whoever it is can be a Scrum Master. Anyone can be a Scrum Master. Okay, but who have the very good knowledge about the product or the project. That is the condition. And then this, as it is following the day-to-day issue and then resolution pattern, then the dependencies will be easily resolved, and then the implementation will go smooth on each and every day. So that is in short about this agile methodology. So Scrum, and then Sprint, and then the requirements, right? Requirements and development, and then the requirements demo. So this is about the agile methodology. So as this is the process there, or the requirements needs to be developed very fast, because we need to definitely showcase within the timelines. We are starting of the sprint, we are saying 2 weeks only. Every sprint we are saying 2 weeks only. Of course, 2 to 4 weeks is the ideal sprint duration, but for a smaller requirements, it will be not more than 2 weeks of duration. So the duration is very short. Every day and then every minute is countable for the developers. So developers requires some framework which will accelerate their development effort, right? Rather focusing on this configurations, if some framework will be there using which the developers can only focus on the development, not on the configurations, obviously it can be developed very fast, right? So that is called as the rapid application development. So in this rapid application development, the Spring Boot will be well suited for us. That is one of the reason the Spring Boot is most commonly using or most widely using, right? So this is about the this RAD model. And again, we need to discuss about this convention over configuration. This is a design paradigm. I will discuss about this maybe in a coming up sessions. Okay. And also I'll discuss about the bill of material pattern, maybe tomorrow or maybe today. Let us see how it will go. Now we understood Spring Boot. What is Spring Boot? We understood, and what we can do with the Spring Boot we understood, and what are the features of the Spring Boot is what we understood. Now what we need to understood again, how many ways we can create a Spring Boot project. How many ways we can create a Spring Boot project? So 3 ways we can create this Spring Boot project. 3 ways, of course. 3 ways we can create the Spring Boot project. So number one is using the Spring initializer, site, that is https://spring.io. So this is the website using which we can create the project. And then second is using the Spring Boot CLI. So Spring Boot given the CLI, that means command line tool. That means command line interface tool is given. So CLI tool we can use to create the Spring Boot application. Third one is we can use the IDE like Spring Tool Suite, IDE like Spring Tool Suite, and IDE like Spring Tool Suite and the IntelliJ. So Spring Tool Suite, IDE like Spring Tool Suite, Eclipse, and IntelliJ. So using these IDs also we can do the Spring Boot application or Spring Boot project creation. So let us see these approaches, and in real time, mostly in real time, we will follow the third approach. Why? Because this third approach again will follow. It will again follow the first approach. That means what? When we use the IDE like STS or Eclipse or IntelliJ, right? It also again will go to the site spring.io and then downloads the project, creates the project, and then downloads the project from there. And Spring Tool Suite, the CLI, Spring Boot CLI, this actually for the just for testing the business logic and just for testing purpose, but it is not really useful actually. This Spring Boot CLI will be helpful in the Linux environments, mostly in the Linux environments, to quickly test something in Linux environment, to quickly develop a Spring Boot to quickly develop the Spring Boot applications, Spring Boot application, or any feature using the Spring Boot. Any feature using the Spring Boot, we can use this CLI, but no need to worry about this one. Whenever, at least I didn't get a chance to use the Spring Boot CLI, so we don't need to worry about it. So IDE like STS, Spring Tool Suite, Eclipse, IntelliJ is most frequently used in real time, and then this, however, will go to the Spring Initializer site, and then from there it will be download the Spring Boot application. So let us see the first approach now, how we can create the Spring Boot application. So first approach, let us see. Let us go to the spring.io site. So go here, and then let us go to the spring.io site. Spring.io, there is 1 minute. Spring Boot, there is a initializer site actually. Let me go and then see our handout. Spring.io initializer site is there, right? Start.spring.io. So this is where we need to go. Spring.io is the official site. Then we need to go start.spring.io. Yes. So this is the Spring Initializer site where we can create the Spring project, Spring Boot project. Okay. So here everything is given with a templatized model, right? The template is given. For example, my project is the Maven project, and language, I want to use Java to develop the Spring Boot application. Of course, we can use Kotlin and then Groovy. Maybe Kotlin will be a futuristic language, coming up language. Nowadays, like how the Java is, maybe Kotlin also will get popularity soon because of its less coding mechanism and then more functional features. But however, yeah, our programming language is Java. So let us choose the Java, and then Spring Boot. See, this Spring Boot 3.0 is coming up, is lineup actually. But these are all the snapshots, meaning still in the development phase, or still in the testing phase, right? Or still in the UAT, right? Meaning the user acceptance test phase. Maybe test after the QA testing is completed, then just they will release for the user acceptance for the users to be play with them, and then user will reports if any issues they will see, then the users can report. Users meaning we, you and me, and all. And also 2.6.6, 1 minute. And also 2.6.6 is the stable release as in today, and 2.5.13 is a snapshot. After the snapshot, stable is released, and 2.7.0 is again there with the M3, and the 3.0.0 is again there with the M2 releases. So 2.6.6 is what we can use because it is pretty much stable as of today, right? So give the group ID, so to which we are developing the application. com.bshopify is the group ID, and then artifact ID is bshopify. Assume we are developing user management application, right? bshopify user management application, or we can see bshopify application, bshopify app we are developing. So this is what bshopify web platform. So package name is com.bshopify. It's automatically taken. Group ID plus artifact ID is automatically taken as an application name, if you can see here, right? So com.bshopify app. No, we don't want this one. com.bshopify.com is our package. Okay, so what is the packaging type do you want? Do you want the packaging type as jar or var? So let me choose the var. Again, we will see a difference between this jar and then var. What is the difference between this jar and var with respect to Spring Boot? Spring Boot application is coming up in two versions. One is in the jar version, second one is in the var version. So what is the difference between these two is what we will see. And my JDK in my machine is the 11. I'm choosing the 11, but still 8 support is also there. If you have, you can choose the 8 support. And whatever the dependencies you want, we can choose the dependencies here. For example, I want the web. So let us choose the web starter. That's it. And what else we want? I think these are the things at least to create a simple project. So say generate, and also we can share this project with someone as well. So just click on the generate so that the project will be created. Yes, the project is created.
How I will get to know that what sort of dependency I require, like initially?
Being a developer, we must have to know, right? We are developing the web. So when you will be work on the Spring Boot, when you know about the Spring Boot, right, you will be work on it. So dependencies we might know. For example, in order to work with the database, we need the JPA, right? In order to work with this some, for example, Kafka, we need some Kafka support, messaging support here. Whatever the dependencies we want, the developer must know. But the developer no need to worry about the versions here, versions of the dependencies. The dependencies must know to the developer what I want. For example, I want Lombok. Yes, I can go and then ask and then take the Lombok. But developer must have to know about which dependency that we have to use in an application. The versions, the developer no need to worry. Got it? Huh?
Yes.
So I just clicked on this generate, and then as soon as click on generate, the application is created. Now what we can do, we have to extract this application and then load into any of your favorite IDE, right? So this is, yes.
Sir, in Springboard, why can't we use latest version?
Hello, sir.
3.0.
Hello.
3.0. Yeah, one moment. Yes, the Spring 3.0.0 we can use, but it is a snapshot only. Snapshot meaning it is not the final version, or it is not the stable version, or it is not the production version. So this is, they are just given for the user acceptance, UAT only they have given. So being the user meaning here we are the developers are the users. So what we can do, we can download it, we can use it, and if anything is required to be added or any issues we will see, then we can report them. So this is the issues we are getting, or when I'm working on, for example, this Kafka model, I'm getting these issues, whereas that issues I have not seen in 2.6.6. Likewise, we can suggest the changes so that they will incorporate these changes in the coming up releases. So this is for just the user acceptance versions, not stable versions. Okay, so that is the reason we are not using.
So what about M2 and M3? Sir?
Sorry, what is that?
M2, M3, 2.7.0, M3.
Yeah, these are actually the repositories. So M2 and M3 is the Spring. Since beginning, it is maintaining the repositories like M2, M3, and then release. Snapshot, M2, M3, release. These are the 4 repositories the Spring is maintaining. So this is also actually a separate, if you can see, M2 is given and then snapshot is given. That means what? To separate repositories, to separate Spring Boot, the configurations were uploaded. Either we can go to M2, maybe this M2 doesn't have the few features of the snapshot, or maybe snapshot may not doesn't have few features of the M2. That means what, if any of the folks or the users will use either this version, that version, but they will come up with the common problems or maybe the different problems they are facing with 2 different series, right? So that is the reason they were given in it 2 different versions, 2 different repositories.
One question, like the Spring Web is inbuilt with Apache Tomcat, right? But if I want some JBoss or some other server, so like can we have such kind of a dependencies?
No dependency, not dependency. Dependency is not required actually, because JBoss is a separate external server. This is application server, but Spring Boot applications to run, it is good enough to have only the web server, meaning servlet container only. But JBoss is what? Application server, which have the servlet container, JSP container, some other pool of connection pool configurations, data source management, transaction management. lot of the things is handling by the JBoss. It is a heavyweight server actually. So JBoss dependency is not a given here because not required. But if you want to deploy this application in JBoss, yes, we can deploy the Spring Boot applications also in the JBoss. Got it? But no starter is required here. And of course, no starter is giving for the servers. The servers are coming as part of this Spring Web only. Okay, right. Yeah. Any questions here?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
please.
you're taking a Marvin project. If you're taking Gradle project means dependencies coming up.
Same dependencies are same Spring Web only, but the dependency management will be different actually. Gradle, if you can take, then the Gradle will take care about the dependencies. The dependencies never change, but the management of the dependencies will change. For example, Gradle is super fast than the Marvin project. Marvin, than the Marvin, Gradle is very, very super fast because Gradle have a proxy or a cache management of the dependencies. So either the Marvin build tool or maybe the Gradle build tool, they will have their own features. Accordingly, they will manage. But the dependency, no change in the dependency. Dependency is same, but the management of this dependency will be different as per the tool that has been designed. Got it?
Okay, what about the snapshots also big changes, sir?
Which one?
Snapshots.
So that's what I told, right? The snapshots are not the finalized versions. They are just, for example, when we develop application, what we will get, just see, we will get by default when we create a Spring Boot application, we will get the snapshot releases, isn't it? That means what? It is in the development only, not in the release stage, right? Snapshot meaning it is in the development only. That is the meaning. So by here also, snapshot meaning they are still in the development. And M2 and then M3 is there, right? So these are given for the somehow user acceptance releases. And while they are developing these versions parallelly, they also given for the user acceptance, meaning being the users, developers are the users of this Spring Boot, right? So we can use it, and if any issues that we are facing or any differences that we are facing to the earlier versions of the Spring Boot we were used, then we can report it to the Spring Boot team so that they can solve that issues, or maybe they can resolve the issues and then they will give it in the next releases. Got it? Huh? Fine. Yeah, can we develop 1 or 2 examples using Gradle? Yeah, we will do. We will see that. Huh? Using Gradle also we will see. Okay, fine. So, yeah.
What is the challenge when we are trying to use other application server? Inbuilt, we are using Tomcat Jetty, but instead of that, if we are trying to deploy the same application on the WebSphere, then is there any challenge like some dependencies are not supported with that particular server?
No challenges we can use. No challenges we can use. The only point is, when we are using the external server, we need to just disable the internal server. That is the only thing. It's a small thing only. So we need to exclude this embedded container from the Spring Web. That's it. And then we need to build a WAR file, and then that WAR file we can deploy in any of the application container like JBoss or WebSphere or any application server, WebLogic, any application server we can use. No challenges, nothing. It is just another web application, not more than that, right? So no challenges. We can happily use other application servers as well. But the point is, we need to disable this Apache Tomcat embedded container. How to disable? We will see coming up sessions. Got it, right? Yes. Fine. So now we have created an application using this Spring initializer. Similarly, right, we can even create the application using any of your favorite IDE. I preferably suggest you to go with this STS tool. Sir, how to download this STS tool? I will explain how to download this STS tool. But before that, let us create a project. So go to File, go to New, Spring Starter Project. Choose the Spring Starter Project. Okay. So, and here if you can see service URL, https://start.spring.io. That means what? It is again going to this site only, start.spring.io. And here we are giving vshopify.ecom. For example, boot-retail. So I'm just developing it for the retail e-commerce. And again, this is common, vshopify-ecom-boot-retail. So let me choose the same package management. So it is a Maven and then Java version 11, var and then Java. So like how it is giving the template here, right? Similarly, this ID is also giving the template and taking all these options what we have chosen and going to this start.spring.io and then taking it and then downloading by default to the workspace location. See this? So D trainings, DSoft, SBMS, Spring Core, right? To this workspace, it is downloading the project what it will create. So click on next. Now it is asking us to choose the. See here it is giving us all the versions whatever we can see here. Those are all also it is showing, but by default it is coming up with the 2.6.6. Why? Because this is the stable version, and it is also giving us this whatever the dependencies we can choose here, right? Similarly, we can choose the dependencies here in this control plane. So for example, Spring Web we required the Spring Web. So when we choose a Spring Web, automatically it came to the selected region or selected pane. Now click on next. See this? This is the selected pane. This is the available pane. So click on next. Now see what it is doing. It is preparing one URL, right? So this entire URL it is preparing. So just go and then see this URL how it is. So this is the URL. So in this URL, what is happening? Starter.zip is the endpoint where the start.spring.io is providing. For that endpoint, we are providing the name of the project and the group ID and artifact ID and then version and then the description of the project and then package name and then type of the package and then packaging type, meaning the Java version, Java language, boot version, and finally the dependencies. Finally, the dependencies that we are supplying. So to this endpoint, starter.zip endpoint, we are supplying all these things, whatever the options we have chosen, those are options are supplying to starter.zip as a parameters, right? Request parameters. As a request parameters, we are giving all these options to the starter.zip endpoint. So as a result, what will happen? The Eclipse will connect to this starter.zip and then download the project. That is the reason you require to have the internet here. Without internet, this website can't be reached. Sometimes you will get an error saying that, Java x.ssl.connection issue. Don't worry, that is because of your internet is not good. So a good amount of internet is required to download this. So just let me click on the finish. Now see this, it is downloading, right? So if you can see here, it is going to that site and then it is downloading, creating Maven project, vShopify boot retail, right? This is the project. And once after the project is created, it is downloading to the current workspace. See this, it is downloaded, right? So it is downloaded to this one, right? So
can we add additional dependencies if we want it after a project is created?
Yes. Obviously, we can have it. I will show that because that is a damn requirement. We definitely can require it. So for example, if any additional requirement that we want, just right click on this palm and then go to the Spring and then go to edit starters and then we can edit the starters. So at any moment of time, we can add few more additionals, whatever we want. Otherwise, one more option is just go to palm.xml file, directly add there. So we don't need to worry about the version, right? So if we know what we need to add here, then we can add here. For example, JP I want to add. So we know which project it is, org.springframework.boot and spring-boot-starter-JPA. That's it. JPA will be added here. But rather than that, it is good if we can again go and then edit the starters to choose the available starters, right? Graphical way. This is very easy. So right click on the pom.xml file and then go here and then choose the dependencies, whatever you want, ladder and time. Okay. Now these are the two ways, total three ways are there, but these two ways are what we can see about. The other way, that is using the CLI, we don't need to worry about it. But just in case, see this Spring Boot CLI is given, and where we can unzip it, and then we can just run the simple Java file, like @controller, something like simple Java file, and then this Java file we can run using this CLI. We no need to give the dependencies, we no need to give the versions, sorry, we no need to give the dependencies, meaning we don't need to give the starter. We just need to write this file and then just need to give it to our Spring Boot CLI. So that will start our Spring Boot server. In Spring Boot configurations, it will configured and then start the Tomcat server, and it will run this application. So this is suitable for running a small snippets or the test snippets in the Linux environment, where we usually don't have an option of downloading the project from somewhere else and then create test suites or something like that. So if you want any test cases immediately to be executed, for instance, right, we can write one test case file and then give it to CLI. Then CLI will create all the, CLI will perform the test case execution and then gives us the test results. That is the only use case where we can use this CLI. So at this moment, we are no need to worry about it, because being developers, very less frequency we have to use this CLI. So I'm not showing much interest there. Rather, I'm going and then showing the interest in this, creating the project using the Spring Initializer and then using the IDE, right? So this is the project that we were created. Got it? Now, once after the project is created, isn't it? Now, once after the project is created, so if you can see this project, very important. From now onwards, every class is important from now onwards, because so far what we have done, we have seen what is Spring Boot and how to create a traditional web application, problem in the traditional web application, solution with the Spring Boot, what is the Spring Boot definition, and what is rapid application model, and how many ways we can create a Spring Boot is what we have seen so far. So from today onwards, very important. Each and every class is very important from today onwards. Why? Because now we will start one discussion, that is, when the Spring Boot application is created, right? We will see what are all the structure of the Spring Boot application that is coming up with. So what is our next agenda that we need to see is, the next agenda that we need to see is, number one, analyze the project structure, understand and analyze the project structure, understand and analyze the project structure of the Spring Boot project structure of, understand and analyze the Spring Boot project structure of packaging jar, and then packaging var. So we will understand the structure, Spring Boot project structure of packaging jar and then packaging var. So this is what we will do. And next, understand the first of all, this is the second point, and then the first point is what we need to understand is, understand the structure, project structure of the Spring Boot and the bill of material pattern and the dependency management using the bill of material pattern. So this is what we need to do. Second is, understand and analyze the Spring Boot project structure using the packaging the jar and then packaging the var. We need to understand. And then next thing is what? Understand the executable jar meaning. Understand the meaning of the executable jar. So these three things let us do tomorrow. let us start tomorrow and then let us do it tomorrow. Okay, so very important. Please don't miss tomorrow's session, whether those who are attending for the demo or our regular folks. Please don't miss tomorrow's session. Tomorrow's session is very, very important. Let us target to complete these 3 agenda. So this is our agenda for tomorrow. And for now, what I can do is how to download this STS, Spring Tool Suite. So just type STS tool download, go to Google and download this STL. So tools, spring.io tools were given. This is the site where we can come, spring.io/tools. Scroll down. So if your is the Eclipse, then we have the Spring Tool 4 for Eclipse. This is the Linux version, Windows version. The jars can be, suitable jars can be downloaded for the Windows version, Linux version of the Eclipse already you are using. And then second thing is what? So we can integrate this Spring Tool. And the third thing is what? There is one more IDE called Thea. So with that IDE also we can integrate. Okay, now. Yes.
Sir? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm installing the Spring Tool 4. After then, where you can place it on the Java 1.8 version?
Okay, so Spring Tool Suite you installed, right? So, okay, let me first complete this, where we can get this Spring Tool Suite. So there is one more zip actually, Spring Tool Suite download. So tools dot this is one thing, and then there is dist.springsource.com. Go to here. In this we can download the Spring Tool Suite. So this is what we can download the Spring Tool Suite. So 3.9.12 is the latest version, and we can download the Spring Tool Suite for the Windows 64-bit and for the Eclipse and the Eclipse 2019 4.13, 4.14. And let us download now the 3.9.12 for the Windows Eclipse. So just click on this zip file and then that zip will be downloaded like this. Now, once after the Spring Boot is downloaded, what we can do is we can set up the, for example, create any project. It will be by default coming up with the Java 1.5. But if you want to set up the build path, so right click on the project and then go and then configure your build path. It's like Eclipse only. It's like Eclipse only. So click on this and then edit it. You will get by default JDK file. So click on it, edit it, click on this alternate JREs, click on the installed JREs and add your JDK here. Got it right? So got it right? Create a project, or else what we can do, we also can set up the, there is another way also to set up this one. Yeah, usually create the project and from there you can set it up, or else let us go and then preferences. Here also we can set up. See this? Again, we came to in the preferences, go to installed JREs and then change the installed JRE version here. Okay, got it right? Right. Sure. I will add the, I will add you in the Google Classroom just in a moment. So I just have noted down your email. I will add you in the Google Classroom. Right, and then
can you please consider a small practical demo with CLI to get familiar?
Your voice is breaking, but if I understood what question you are asking is, can we do a small practice on this Spring Boot is what you are asking?
CLI.
CLI. Oh, okay.
CLI to get familiar.
Okay, sure. So then I will demo a simple thing on CLI tomorrow. So CLI, Spring Boot CLI. Spring Boot CLI demo. So yes, let us showcase the Spring Boot CLI demo also tomorrow. Any questions for me? Anything else? Any questions? Of course, let us speed up from the Monday onwards. But in this week, there is only one day, right? Tomorrow, let us go a little slow only. But coming up sessions, let us speed up. And someone asked me a question. What the question is? Shiva K. Dependencies auto configuration sometimes may cause problem, correct? Like vulnerabilities found last time. Hey, don't mix the all the things. Vulnerability is different. Vulnerability is altogether a different problem. It is not because of the auto configuration only. It is not because of the auto configuration only. It might be because of other reasons as well. Right, the applications which are not on the auto configuration, like Spring applications, which were developed and then while in the production since long time, also have seen the vulnerability issue and then resolve the vulnerability issues. But okay, yes. So as the vulnerability is found last time and few latest versions, yes. Are there any other limitations of Spring Boot framework? Limitations is different and the vulnerability occurred is different. The one and only one limitation of the Spring Boot, not Spring Boot limitation. It is not the limitation. It is a feature only. But when we go to the microservices model, there we will see a little limitation. I don't see any limitation with the Spring Boot framework. But the only problem is what, some out of control dependencies are also coming to us using the transitive dependency management. For example, we are choosing one starter. So we have chosen one starter, right? So see this Spring, see this, we have just chosen the Spring Boot starter web, we have just chosen. But what we got a lot of dependencies right? A lot of dependencies. In these dependencies, few dependencies which might not require to us, even. So lot of dependencies came. See, Marketo at this moment not required to me. Open test is not required to me, right? So, but it given with its opinion, because it framed its own opinion and then it given these defaults, right? So unnecessary dependencies also might getting. That is only the a little drawback, but no other drawbacks I have seen. Okay, because it is the rapid application tool developed with the motto of simplifying the developer productivity. So that's the reason. The only thing is what the unnecessary dependencies also get downloaded sometimes. Yes. So other questions? Yeah. So I will
have
add you to the. Yeah. Please.
Yeah, so like generally some projects will be implemented with some different modules, right? I mean different projects. Like some people will do the rate calculation, some people will do different REST web applications and all.
Correct.
So each project have a different dependencies, but all are using the same dependency container called the Tomcat. So that case. Like in the local, if I want to test it, so everything I have to run as a Java application only, right click and run as a Java application on that, right? So the time then that Tomcat is running on one port and this Tomcat also running on the same port, then might be we'll get a conflict, right?
No, we never get the conflict. Why? Because when we run this application, for example, we are running this application. So when we are running this application, of course, port conflict we will get for sure. Port conflict we will get. So, but when we are running this application, it will be run as a separate process ID. So within the operating system, no matter how many Spring Boot projects are there, each and every Spring Boot project will be run with one process ID. Of course, we will discuss these things in the coming up sessions, but just in case I will run this one. So each and everything will be coming up with a process ID. And that process ID will only gives the conflict with the port numbers. So that is the reason there is a concept called auto generation of the port number. Rather, we will give the port number. We will also ask the Spring Boot to take its own decision to generate the port number. So it will every time auto generate the port number. That will resolve the problem. See this? Now, when we started the application, there is a process ID created. So 33592. Similarly, if we start one more Spring Boot application, one more process ID will be created. So every Spring Boot application is running within a process boundary. And in that process boundary, obviously the conflict that we will get only with the port numbers of the different Tomcats of the different applications. Okay. So that is the reason we will also can be able to configure the auto generation of these port numbers. Got it? Huh?
So that auto generation of the port ID is from the front end, either Angular or React, which they are going to consume the application might be they has to use the some constant IDs to test out their application, right? But it's, right?
Correct. Usually, the final thing how it will become is they never call our Spring Boot applications directly, meaning our applications they never call directly. Rather, they will come through the API gateway, right? So if you can see a bigger picture of the application, of course, it is the now as we are at the very beginning stage, so we should not give the random IP addresses, random port numbers at this moment, or else if we can give also, that will be a problem for the UI developers. But in our future, what we will do is let us implement an application in such a way all the backend services will be resolved using the the registry from the gateway. So there will be always one gateway with us. So these will be with the random port numbers, of course, but that will be registered inside this Docker registry. So all the applications will come to this API gateway, where API gateway will be configured with the load balancer. So there is no point of these ports and all when consuming by the production applications.
Okay, got it. That means even when we are creating that one as an image, when we convert this Spring Boot application as an image, right? So each image will run as one pod inside of the container. So even when the pod is one system, so everyone will contain the same port also, we don't have any problem further, right?
Pod level, it will be a problem. Ports are all what, network level they are. Of course, of the containers, correct. So there are two things actually. What two things are? For example, this application category service is running in one container with the port number 8080, assume. And there is product service which is also running inside the container with the 8080. There is no problem. This can be run on 8080, this can be run on 8080. But the problem is what, this 8080 is a port inside the container. So with that port, we cannot access the application. So that is the reason we have.
Right.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So we are going to cover the API gateway as well, right here?
This is the part of the Spring Cloud. Yes, whatever the diagram I'm showing, right? This entire diagram will be covered as part of our Spring Boot microservices sessions.
Okay.
Like API gateway, Docker, and then this ELK, Kafka, RabbitMQ, Grafana Prometheus, Jipkin server, WSO2 or Keycloak. Here Keycloak will come, not WSO2, Keycloak, and then JWT, that is OAuth2 framework, and then single sign-on, right? What else? And the AWS infrastructure like VPC, NAT gateway, load balancer, and then see this Redis cache also we will use, right? And then the React integration I will explain. Not React just complete framework from the scratch I will explain. No, that is not. But integration with the React application I will showcase. Meaning whatever we develop, right, entire production grade, so that we will integrate with the React.
Yeah, one thing, like for interview purpose, if they are going to see any project when we join, right, especially existing project, we want to know the flow of the application, right? Like in case if you have any bigger project, after certain level, can you explain the flow of the application to understand how the flow goes on, right? So that's very important, right? So can you let's after some time, can you explain that on any project?
Sure. So we also have one this vShopify traditional web application we have. I'll explain how to go and then how to understand.
So understanding the existing thing, right? So better once know the flow of the application, we can control anything, right? Yeah.
Yes. So Spring Bean lifecycle is definitely I will cover as part of the future sessions. Don't worry, Spring Core, in the Spring Core, we have not covered the Spring Bean lifecycle yet, right? Not only Spring Bean lifecycle, there are certain event processors, post processors, and then pre-processors were there. Slowly, I will cover when the things came. For example, when we are looking at the internals of the Spring Boot, again, we need to understand the Spring Bean lifecycle, and then the event listeners, post and then pre-processors we need to understand. There I will cover. Okay. Yeah, for sure I will cover. Any other questions for me? Why Spring Boot is auto configuration? Hey Tulshi, why Spring Boot is auto configuration? Is that question exactly not answered at this moment? At this moment, I may not be answered, but I can answer in a single word. Why Spring Boot is auto configuration, doing its auto configuration, because to eliminate the dependencies problem. I think your question will be easily answered, or maybe you can also easily understand my answer by attending tomorrow's bill of material pattern session. So what is happening now, without this auto configuration, what is happening, developers need to worry, or developer needs to take the responsibility of adding the dependencies with different versions. So that is the problem. When let's say I have taken data JPA is also giving one Spring Core dependency, and I have taken the Spring Web MVC that also trying to give the Spring Core. If these two Spring Cores are of two different versions, then the collision or maybe a conflict will come. So that's the reason Spring Boot has taken up that responsibility. So you don't need to worry about this conflicts resolution. I have a very good solution with the bill of material pattern and then transfer dependencies management pattern. You just work on choosing the dependency what you want, or maybe the starter what you want. Okay, so the auto configuration is the benefit. Auto configuration is the benefit for the developers to not to go into the unnecessary conflict with the dependencies management. That is one thing. Second thing is what, with the auto configuration, by default, for example, Spring Data JPA I have chosen, assume. So by default, it will enable the data source configurations. It will enable the JPA auto configurations. It will enable us to, configure the at least one database, right? A lot of things it is predefinedly giving us. For example, data source enablement, and then JPA repositories enablement, right? All this it is by default enabling with the help of the auto configuration. Of course, this is not one day concept, auto configuration itself will take a week of time to understand. Okay, yes. So coming up sessions, I will give you a bigger picture or the clear picture of the auto configurations. Yes. So Anurag, you are taking the demo classes, and I don't have clear idea of the final project we will create. Can you please give an overview of the final project? Anurag, this is the final project that we will go. First of all, this is not a Java real-time project sessions. These are the Spring Boot microservices sessions, point number 1. And the Spring Boot microservices sessions, we are doing here by developing a project. It is not like, different use cases. No, we will take one use case only, and we will first develop the web application using the Spring Web MVC in the Spring Boot. So using Spring Boot, Spring Web MVC, we will develop this web application. Right, this is the step 1 we will do. And step 2, what we will do, this application, whatever the Spring Web MVC development is there, right? This application, we will convert into the microservices later in time. Once we've done all the Spring Boot concepts on this project, what we're going to do, a simple project, categories, products, orders, and then customers. So just 4 modules it have. So this on the simple project, once we understand the clear concepts of the Spring Boot, every concept, once we understand and then completed the Spring Boot, then the next topic of our learning is what, microservices. So when we go to the microservices, then we will drill down this architecture into the microservices architecture like this. So whatever the modules here you have seen, these modules are taken as, each and every module is taken as one separate microservice, which will have its own database. And these microservices will provide the single responsibility entities data, and that data will be consumed at the UI level by the UI frameworks. This time, these are not the Spring Boot frameworks. This is a UI framework called React.js or AngularJS kind, or maybe any other UI side framework. So that UI side framework will consume the APIs in a secure way using OAuth2 and then JWT tokens, and then showcase the data here. So this is we will do in our microservices. Now this microservices management is also required because of the few problems here we can see. And that is the reason we will go for this microservices management architecture, which we call it as a production architecture. So how these microservices are managing? Microservices are managing using the ecosystem. That ecosystem contains the registry and then the config server and then the API gateway with the resilience 4J and also containerization to immutable our application and then security. Lot of aspects, lot of add-ons we are doing here, right? And then finally, we are building our application with the microservices architecture where front end is the React.js and with the API gateway or other defaults, meaning other ecosystem components. And also we are using here our microservices when we develop this Spring Boot application, right? This Spring Boot application, when we develop, we will use the Spring Boot logger support, logback mechanism we will use. But when we go to this one, our application start reporting the logs to an external server called ELK, and that ELK will get the data, aggregate it, and then show in a nice UI called in the Kibana in a report model. And also we have the Kafka, meaning event-driven microservices we will implement here. I will explain what are the event-driven microservices later, but for them we will use the Kafka and then RabbitMQ. So just to differentiate between RabbitMQ and then Kafka, I'll take one use case on RabbitMQ, other use case on Kafka, so that you will make a clear picture when to go for RabbitMQ, when to go for Kafka. And also our microservices are deployed and then running in the production in a Docker containers, right? We want to visualize the each and every Docker container is consuming how much of CPU, how much of memory, all those metrics we want to know. So those things we can see inside this Grafana. And also we will use the Jipkin. The Jipkin is what, to trace out the traceability, to trace out the microservices communication. For example, product service requires the category service. Order service requires the product service. Payment service requires the order service. So for example, order service completes order and then initiate the payment. And somewhere the payment has been broken down. So we want to see what is the call or what is the communication network calls went on and then where it broken down, where it broken down. So those are all the things we have to see. So for the traceability, we will use this Jipkin. Got it right? And then Redis cache we will use to better management of the JWT tokens and also to solve one problem of this microservices security. What is that problem? We will discuss in the coming up sessions.
So the Kafka is going to taking care of that communication between the two microservices. Jipkin is going to monitor what's happening. Just
traceability, where the call started, where it went, and how it went to that call. For example, category service, product service is calling the category service. So product service, when it started calling it and how it called, in the middle, it went to adder service or payment service. So what is its complete traceability is what we can see in the Jipkin.
Okay, like just like a Java stack, how the call is going from one method to another method. Similarly, by using the Jipkin, we can find out the same tracing. Okay.
Tracing, correct. Network tracing, but it is network tracing. Yes.
Oh, network tracing. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the fee of this course is the 7,000 BMSN, 7,000, and then duration is 90 days. Don't consider these 1 week time. Consider from the Monday onwards, and then the duration is 90 days. Okay. And from the next coming up next week onwards, I'll spend much time. I'll better plan for the sessions like 1 hour, 15 minutes. I will focus on the implementation of the session conducting, and then 15 minutes I'll spend with you on the doubts, and then wind up the session by the sharp 8:30 and start the sessions by sharp at 8 a.m. Sorry, 7 a.m. 1.5 hour daily session. Okay, Monday to HR is asking 8,000. I don't know. Maybe sorry for this miscommunications, but just check with them. Just check with them. Yeah. So Monday to Saturday are the classes. Sunday no classes, but in future on need basis, I will conduct the classes on Sunday as well. Be prepared for that. I will inform you a 1 week of time if the Sunday classes will be there in the coming up weeks. I will inform you a 1 week before only, so that you can better plan. Right? Okay, folks. That's all for today.
Sir,
And tomorrow, yeah. Go ahead.
Just one thing I want to ask you, sir. Are you going to cover this creating custom APIs and how to handle them?
Custom APIs, 100% now. See this if I understood your question correctly. See, these are our custom APIs only, no? Category service, product service. When custom APIs meaning, I would like to see.
Yeah, how to create and handle from scratch you explain now.
Oh yeah, we will meaning the consuming the external services.
Yeah, like creating the services from scratch, custom.
Exactly. These are all from the scratch. Yeah, exactly. Very scratch we'll start. Of course, before starting this, we will even see the design considerations. So we will even see the design considerations that I upload the document, design consideration document I will upload. For example, we are starting the, so where it is, Springboard, MS Cloud, no, not this one. And of course, I can showcase later in time, but for example, we are starting the API development, right? Then we will understand what is post the Spring REST standards, and what is the REST standards, how best way we can implement the REST APIs, right? The design consideration concepts I will give, and then only we will start from the very scratch series. So what is REST, what are the guidelines, what are the principles that every developer would have to know from the REST standards, right? The best practices, all we will see. And then REST guidelines, all this we will see, and then we will start implementing the REST APIs, very scratch. Okay, yes, all these things were documented. How you deep dive into the Kafka drive approach? So Kafka, okay, this is again a nice question I can see. And let me do one thing. Probably let me go to DURGASOFT online. Can I answer your question if possible tomorrow? I have to attend one meeting, or else quickly I can do one thing. I can navigate you to go to the course content of the Kafka, so that you will easily understand, I mean, how much depth I am covering here. Okay, so just yes, 1 weekend batches, course content. I believe course content is uploaded here. If not, I will upload the course content. Yes, course content is not uploaded. Okay, so we will discuss about the producer consumer, and then transactions in producer, fault tolerance, log recovery, and then the record recovery, and then error solving, security with the two-way handshake. So full in-depth, actually, whatever the required for the developer, a complete in-depth I am covering. Of course, there is also one weekend Apache Kafka batch I am conducting. For this weekend batch, how depth I will conduct, the same depth also will be followed for you as well. Okay, fine, right? So that's all, folks, for today. I will see you tomorrow. I have to jump to one meeting now. See you tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you.